introduction. Okay, and I'm really excited by the opportunity to present at the 2021 PM Symposium. It is an exciting opportunity. I think our landscape in terms of how we work, the advancement we've made in technology, as you'll see a little bit, have really changed significantly. A little bit more about me. I am actually now in Denver, Colorado. I'm there with my wife. She's defending her research in dentistry, actually, next door to me. So if you hear the door bang, that means some folks are trying to get in. But I'm really pleased. I think the technology that we're embracing here today via video conference is really what has triggered $30+ trillion in savings for U.S. economy, and we'll begin to go into this discussion. So really going to talk about two things, right? The changing landscape of work and how technology has really advanced the landscape. But first, I think we need to understand how the landscape within our current environment has changed. So we'll spend a little bit of time talking about that. In many ways, it's the new face of project management. It's the new face of accounting. It's the new face of running business in an environment as we're seeing now. It's really people focused, right? There's one friend of mine who his famous phrase or quote is, "This job would be easy if it wasn't for people." With people at the center of everything we do, how do we manage staff people? How do we get the work done while delivering work remotely and while delivering work in that changing framework? I'm really going to talk about 5 different areas of research that have been done on this topic. And this research, as a researcher, we always like to look back. What has the research demonstrated in terms of the change in workforce? So we'll talk a little bit about that and also examine the change in technology. So those 5 areas. First, we talk about the distribution of work. All right, we'll look at a case study where one Fortune 500 company was able to reduce, rather increase productivity by about 41% while decreasing turnover. Distribution of work, we'll talk about what does that mean. Technology, I think you all are here today making use of the technology that heretofore we took for granted, right? Enabling technology and social collaboration. Technology as an enabler of work is significant, both from an asynchronous and a non-asynchronous perspective. How do we exchange data going both ways? How do we exchange data going one way? We'll also discuss briefly the shortage of workers, right? We all, from my perspective as CFO at Millhouse Engineering, we see significant shortages in labor. What it takes to attract current employees, what it takes to attract current team members, and being able to work within that framework. How do you keep the work going, but how do you accommodate team members? I kind of dovetail into more work flexibility, right? We need to be able to, as executive, we need to be able, as managers, demonstrate some flexibility in the workplace. Actually, a lot of flexibility in the workplace. So we'll spend some time about that, what you and your firm are doing in order to be a little bit more flexible to accommodate employees. And finally, we live in a different time, right? It's not just being able to make money or demonstrate that you're profitable, right? There are other aspects of work, from building a sustainable organization to encouraging team members, right, to participate, being able to demonstrate through social activities, giving back to the community. And the United Nations, through the UN development goals, have really outlined 17 goals that transform, what they call transform our world, right? So those are sustainable development goals, right? It calls for all countries, right? Take care of the poor, how the rich interact with the community. And also, how do we promote prosperity, not just here in the US, not just here in Chicago, but how do we promote that across the globe? So those are the research areas that we're going to talk about. This research was produced in 2011 by a group called the Advancement for Workforce Development. I think it was important for me to really step back to look at what the research said prior to the great pandemic, and try as a researcher to talk about what evidence we're seeing right now and how does that dovetail into those 5 components that we're looking at today. So let's go a little bit more in detail about each one of those. So when we talk about distribution of work, the world as we know it has changed, right? Organizations at large are finding ways to get the work done, not necessarily in a centralized office, but most of the work now are getting done remotely, or a lot of the work are getting done remotely. It is that shift in expectation, is that shift in how organizations now respond to the changing workforce, right? The idea of work from home, right? I think before today, right, before a year ago, I think as senior executive, we were all pretty much pessimistic about, can the work actually done? How productive our employees are going to be when they work remotely? I think the research now that is coming from this, and even before the pandemic, is showing evidence that productivity can be maintained. Actually, productivity can be increased because of work from home. Also, the concept of ROE, right? Results only environment, right? In that framework, we talk about rewarding employees for results rather than hours worked. Best Buy, for example, several years ago instituted this mechanism by which employees are compensated. Okay, they were able to significantly reduce work within productivity, increase productivity within the office environment, right? They allowed employees to focus on results, focus on getting the work done, but really clarifying and setting what expectations are for each team member, each employee within the organization. It also meant that employees were needed to be what the research called entrepreneurial, right? That is being an entrepreneur within your own organization, right? Being responsible for your work, knowing what your work is supposed to do and delivering on that basis. It is not for every organization, right? It's not for every organization. Employees need to take ownership for the work. They need to also know how they're being held accountable and how they're being measured. So that is one of the areas that a lot of companies, when we talk about distribution of work, really putting the responsibilities back on the employee, right? Putting the responsibilities back on it to manage your work. So ROE is a culture of work that gives people the power, right? It's how you get the work done, when you get the work done, it's really up to you. What really matters is getting the work done. So as we think of distribution of work, right? Recent studies have found that over 63% of high revenue growth companies have adopted a hybrid model of work. What do we mean by hybrid model? I think you all know that because we all have had to go through that over the last several months. All right, being able to work remotely, being able to work in the office. For some of us, you might work in the office 2-3 days a week, but work remotely for some of the time. While about 69 very similar firms that are not growing rejected that concept, right? Managers and leadership wanted their team members, wanted control over the work and how it was done. What we've seen and what have really catapulted, I believe, the hybrid model is we've seen technology, right? How technology has advanced that work. The rise in high-speed internet, right? I probably have a gig internet speed at home, right? The use of Zoom, technology, Teams, and how you manage your employees, how you get the work done has been significant. So over the last year, the ability to work from home have saved US companies somewhere in the vicinity of $30 to $50 billion a day. That is significant. Just imagine what would have happened if we did not have the technology or we did not shift to this hybrid model. And we'll talk about technology and see how technology has advanced, I would say, in the last 18 months. So the pandemic have really demonstrated our ability to shift, our ability to adapt to a changing environment and to embrace technology, as a matter of fact. We have one poll question. I'm gonna put it up a little bit, talk about how satisfied are you with working from home. Let's get to the poll question. Okay, can you see that? I'm going to relaunch the poll question. So the poll question: has technology been adequate to meet your work from home needs? And the second question: how many of you have had to adopt new technology since the outbreak of the pandemic? So 12 out of 12 has had to use technology, or believe that technology has been adequate to meet their work from home needs. And we could see that 9 out of 13 so far has had to adopt new technology because of the pandemic. Pandemic was spelled wrong here, but we can see the results, 14 out of 14. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, let's stop sharing this technology, right? Okay, so the other part of this construct talks about project management, understanding that this is a project management institute. Research has also demonstrated that, and most of these are not new, right? Work from home did not just happen because of the pandemic. It did not just happen 5-10 years ago. We've had an environment where many of our colleagues have had the opportunity to work from home. What the research is showing is that working from home, it does advance the bridge in terms of distance, right? Lower project costs due to technology advancement that bridge the distance of delivering goods or services. We believe that it has improved the work-life balance for project team members. Clearly, as we'll see later on, the increase in terms of efficiency and decrease of travel time. For example, as I work in my day job and working with my team members, when we are extremely busy, team members request to work from home. They believe that obviously reduce travel time, but they can be a lot more productive, a lot more efficient, providing they have all of the tools, right? Providing they have adequate technology, providing they have adequate computing power to work from home. And frankly, working from home or working remotely does give you the ability to attract top talent. It widens the ability, it widens the area of the geographic area where you can get talent. So does it work? Yes, we believe that it works. We believe that the research shows that there is an increased productivity. There is skepticism, right? There is skepticism from what does it do to the team member who is in some ways distant from the work environment within the office, right? As managers, as leaders, we have to develop technology, we have to develop tools to monitor and to ensure that the results, even from a role perspective, is actually getting delivered. So those are the things I believe that as we institute, as we develop this concept of work from home, as we further develop this concept of work from home, managing the results, being able to monitor those results will definitely be a good bargain both for the employees and the employer. One of the drawbacks also is that how do you collaborate? How do you partner with various team members across your organization? And in this study, we'll look at what Cisco, for example, have done, how they have created their own social network within the organization to enable greater collaboration between team members, right? You can post family photos, you could post information, not just unique to your role, but things that are happening in the community. I think most legal scholars would probably be apprehensive to doing that. You could have a rogue employee posting information that would not really fit within the culture of the organization. So we have to be careful. But clearly, I think the current research, our environment, our current companies are telling us through research that productivity has increased, and they are able to attract a lot more employees that are working from remote areas. Technology, let's talk some more about that. Okay, being able to use software such as Zoom, software such as Microsoft Teams, let workers really collaborate, right? It let workers collaborate almost simultaneously, but also you could communicate one way. Second poll question, I think we asked that already, didn't we? How has technology been adequate to meet your work from home? I believe we asked that question already. That was the second question. So let's talk about this slide. This slide is very, very interesting. In the last 18 months, how has technology changed? Right, e-commerce, one research futurist, Daniel Burrus, spoke about e-commerce alone has advanced 10 years in 1 year, right? We all go to the restaurants and we now have QR codes, right? We all can work remotely on a beach somewhere, right? E-commerce has significantly increased by 10 years within a span of 1 year. Similarly, AI, machine learning, data analytics, adaptive and predictive cyber technology have increased about 5 years within 1 year. Okay, we all have had to change. We all have had to flex. We all have had to adopt this technology in terms of how we work, how we currently work. So those are just changes since the pandemic, right? Cloud computing, robotics, within 1 year, we've seen a change that would normally take 4 years. And of course, blockchain technology, that is definitely emerging and has emerged as you know, how we look at data, how we secure data, how we enhance commerce have seen significant changes, but that technology also have been moving at the speed of light. So those are some of the things that really has enabled us, the change in workforce, from a hybrid model, from a work from home model, embracing technology. The changes that we've seen has really enabled us to work remotely. Just recently, the New York Times published, I think that was probably a couple of weeks ago, published an article, right, that really talked about, what we've been discussing here, how technology has really come to the rescue. Again, back a few slides, we talked about $30 billion a day has been saved by US companies because we've been able to really catapult technology to a new place, embrace technology, and through video conferencing, that has been one of the significant changes. You have internal communication, how you use apps such as Slack, apps such as Microsoft Teams, and they like to really advance the work. About 87% of firms surveyed have upgraded their technology since 2020. We've had to do that. It was really the way we needed to survive as a firm. Even at my current work, right? We've had to embrace technology. We've had to use technology in new ways that before we did not imagine, right? So lots of conference calls, lots of interviewing, right? Interviewing team members, new team members, getting the work done through video conferences. Technology and work from home. Again, how technology ramps up productivity from a work from home perspective. Sponsoring responsibility, right? The employee need to recognize their responsibility to the firm, to the organization in terms of getting the work done. It increases concentration. The coffee break, the water cooler discussions, this tend to be eliminated from a work from home perspective. There's a sense of community, supporting community, supporting moms, supporting parents, supporting married couples in terms of work. We believe that the technology has also embraced effective communication. Although, as you'll see in a few slides, clearly face-to-face meeting is definitely the most important way or the most significant way in terms of how we communicate. And access to data, right? Access to data, real-time access to data through technology, through cloud computing, getting your information on the cloud, right? Ready access to technology has definitely enhanced remoteness and the current change in workforce. Again, study after study, every piece of research that I've put my eyes on have demonstrated that between 20 to 25% of increased productivity. Yet, about 83% of CEFOs, right, would rather have their employees on site, right? What gives, right? Because of the ability to control, not because CEOs want to control, but they are closer to the data, closer to the information from a CEO perspective. So 83% of them are saying they'd rather the team members be back in the office, and it's easier to control that space. Many CEOs have actually asked their team members to come back, right? And also move into a hybrid model. Next poll question, I'm going to put that up for you. Okay, this is question 10. Okay, that was slide 10. Do you want? Okay, do you feel that there is adequate communication from your teammates and team members or team leaders? I think that has been one of the more difficult things, even for me as the CFO, is remembering that I have a team member who is working remotely. And even as I'm in the office, I have to remind myself that I need to have a check-in, right? I need to stop, check in with that team member, see how they're doing, see what guidance they need throughout the day to get the work done. I think that has been, for me, one of the more challenging thing about working and managing staff remotely, the ability to stop, do that check-in, make it part of your routine work, but also being able to see the results that are getting done. So 8% is saying that communication has been very inadequate. 38%, wow, has been slightly inadequate. So you add those two numbers together, we are 46%. And another 23% is reporting slightly adequate, with 31% very adequate. We really need to understand, would love to hear from you in terms of what do you mean by very adequate? What is being done there? How is your leader managing the work that you're doing to categorize it as very adequate? Ideally, that's where we need to be as leaders, as organization, and really enabling our team to be efficient. Okay, I think we have all 14 responses. Let's end the poll. Share results. So how effective are the modes of communication? So we really talk about on the previous question in terms of how your leaders have been able to communicate to you. Research again is demonstrating that the most effective way to communicate at work and with team members is face-to-face, right? You talk about the audio, the tone, the inflection, your facial expression, right? Body language, being able to decipher all of that in person enables better communication. Most of us now are used to video conference, and there's that reduction in terms of body language. Obviously, we could see facial expression, eye contact. Again, that tends to be less so, but 70% effective. I think that's still a good number. Actually, recently I had a phone conference with one of our financier, and I'm like, phone conference? Why are we having a phone conference? I haven't had a phone conference in a long time. So to have 10 people on the call having a phone conference seems a little bit off. But phone conference, again, that's about 50% effective. We all know that communicating through email is probably one of the most inefficient ways to communicate. We tend to misunderstand what is being communicated. We tend to misunderstand the tone of the email, and a lot of fighting, a lot of just inappropriateness of how you understand the email exchange could be dangerous. We all have been in that space. So there are lots of visual clues, lots of audio and tone and inflection. All of those are lost through email. It's always better after a couple of emails, you just stop and pick up the phone and talk to someone. And of course, similarly, your text and chat and written document follow behind in terms of the effectiveness of communication. But again, with video conferencing, I think we're beginning to see that advance in meaningful ways, and we're beginning to see a widespread adoption in terms of how we communicate within the office and how we communicate as a society. Shortage of knowledge workers. According to Deloitte, they surveyed about 5,000 women across 10 countries. Nearly 80% of women say that they have their workload as a result of the pandemic has increased. It has increased for multiple reasons. Women generally are also caregivers to young ones, caregivers to parents. So the burden of caring for the home, the burden of delivering at work has definitely impacted not just women, but just about every individual, as it were. Well, 66% of women have reported having more responsibilities at home, right? Now, you have to take the kid to work. You have to take your child to school, right? Being able to deliver that, not trusting the busing system, so you no longer want to put your child on the bus. So it's your work-life balance, right, has definitely been impacted as a woman, and therefore a lot of women have actually exited the workforce. A couple months ago, we actually saw the labor report that talked about 4.3 million people left the job market in August. I believe in September, we had a much different job result, but those are the things that we're seeing in the workforce. People are removing themselves from work. There's something called the Great Resignation. That is real. Employees tend to be at a different space, right? The pandemic have really affected how we think about work, right? Where the people's attitude towards work have definitely changed. The Bureau of Labor Statistics also keep tracking the numbers, right? The quit rate has increased significantly. People are no longer willing to just put up with what's happening at work, right? So this is significant. And this is something as organizations, because of the demand that we're seeing for labor, salaries have increased. The total compensation, your packages have increased. People are demanding more from the employees, and employers are stepping up, right? Many employees are offering that flexibility that we talked about early on. Flexibility. The economy is really characterized by labor shortages, right? It's in the space of professional accounting. It's in the space of project managers. So we need to definitely take that into mind. As I said, employees are demanding greater work flexibility. All right, we have to be able to focus on those needs. Getting the work done is still going to be critical, right? Getting the work done is critical. I think where the work gets done is taking a backseat. How the work get done is taking a backseat. But in the end, getting the work done, moving to a role model where results-oriented work, I think becomes more important. Work flexibility, again, means the ability to choose how, when the work is done. That's really what we mean by when we talk about work flexibility. Finally, my favorite subject, as was introduced, I spent quite a bit of time in the nonprofit sector, and we tend in that space to focus a lot about the well-being of the individual, complete well-being of the individual, and how do we move everyone along, right? How do we move society along? How do we care for those that we work with? How do we care for community at large? One of the places that happens, that discussion is happening is really what I would call those 17 areas of sustainability goals at the UN. If you read those individual things, I think we all would understand, we all would agree in terms of what that means. But again, the UN as a government, I think we tend to be skeptical of it. Young people are definitely prioritizing climate action. There's a growing movement in terms of taking care of the climate, taking care of the air that we breathe, making sure that there's quality and biodiversity in terms of how we engage in commerce. So it's not going to go away, right? Sustainability, being a good corporate citizen, that is never going to go away, right? We are becoming more aware. Our employees are demanding that we are more sustainable, being green, right? Being able to live in communities that doesn't pollute, right? Those things are not going away. It is an urgent need. It's an increasing need that we're seeing in the workforce and in the community at large. So we've really discussed those 5 separate dimensions of work, right? We've discussed the change in technology, how technology has really advanced over the last, I would say, 18 months, and how we have embraced technology to really catapult, keep the economy growing, keep people employed as a community, as a nation. Some additional survey that I think are really relevant from an employee perspective, customer perspective, and even investor. 65% of employees believe that organizations should be responsible for the leaving each other better, net better off through work, right? 83% believe that want the flexibility to be productive anywhere, right? You want to be able to work from the beach, you want to be able to work from the mountains, providing you have good internet access. Right. Similarly, we're finding that 66% of customers plan to make more sustainable or ethical purchases over the next 6 months. Right. And obviously investors, because we're always looking for return on our investment, also have to keep that in mind, right? What are customers demanding? And you have to be able to meet those needs. That study, by the way, was from Accenture, The Future of Work. We spoke about Cisco a little bit. I don't want to spend too much time on there, but really how Cisco have really created an environment that provide feedback and provide this social platform for the employees to be able to work together. I think there's a cautionary note in doing that. You have to be able to make sure that communication is done in a meaningful way and really does not offend individuals. So what does it mean to embrace technology from a project management perspective, right? We talk about risk management, reduce management dependency on milestones, right? Those are the things that as a project management team you look for in terms of technology. Technology has to be ease of use, right? You have to be able to integrate third-party applications so that the system needs to be agile enough so that there's almost instant benefit to using the work. You need to be able to track system as a project manager. You need to be able to track. You need mobile technology. You need to be able to collaborate easy and obviously delegate tasks. So we've really now looked at what has changed from the workforce perspective and what do we need as leaders, as project managers from a technology perspective. It looked like this is my last slide. We might have one more poll question. And I skipped question 7. I did skip it. Let's do that. The question is, let's launch this. Sorry about that. We skipped question 7. Question 7 talks about how satisfied are you with work from home? Very satisfied. very dissatisfied. 1% very dissatisfied. Slightly. So 77% so far are very satisfied with work from home. We also see the people who are very satisfied to work from home, again, tend to be entrepreneurial. They also are individuals that are really, they know the material, they know what they are to deliver, and their work are very easily measured. One survey, one study also talked about younger people. I'm not sure how true that is now, but that study talked about younger people whose social life is really around the office, around their friends, tend to prefer to return back to work. So if your social life has kind of been secured and you've been in the workforce for some time, then being back in the office is not really something that is appealing. At least that's what current survey results are showing. I'm not sure. I think most of the young people that I work with prefer to work from home. So maybe that's one study that is a little bit off. But 69% of you say that you're very satisfied with work from home. 19% are slightly satisfied. This is amazing. This kind of supports what we're saying in terms of survey and just about any paperwork that any research or article you put up actually supports this results that we're saying. So interesting. Let's share the results with you. Okay. So we are about done.
Thank you, Dr. Regis. Well, thank you for your insightful presentation today. I think we learned a great deal about the many concepts, the changing landscape within the current workforce, understanding what we're doing at Millhouse Engineering and Construction and Company, and as leaders to address this new pedigree, discuss success techniques necessary to manage remote project managers. So now we're at the start of our Q&A portion. Everyone has now have the ability to come off mute, or you may also use the chat box to put any questions that you might have for Dr. Regis.
See, the chat has been very busy.
Yes, a lot of great comments that are coming in there.
I was not looking at those when in the presentation. One comment, my team members are in multiple locations, even in Chicago area. All functions are at different campuses. But it's hard to communicate with team members in Asia without relying on email. Yeah, that's correct.
I guess I do have a question for you to start it off. So are your work objectives clear each day, each week?
Yes, as working in the accounting space, I think very professional setting. Team members are aware what they need to do in order to, I think it becomes a lot easier for, as a CFO, we have set schedules, right? We have almost daily routines of things that need to happen. As the CFO, we tend to report on financial performance on a monthly basis. So there's a cycle, there's a known cycle for each team member that's puts the effort around work. Even in the engineering space, right? There is clarity on, or there should be clarity rather, on how many hours you need to put in to get task A, task B, task C done. Because the hours you put in are becoming billable time to your client, right? So you have to be able to manage, when you sell time, you have to be able to know those deadlines. You have to be able to know your deliverables. Although I'm not an engineer, I work very closely with them. And one of the key deliverables that we look at, key KPIs that we look at is how effective has that time that you've put on a project. Can we bill a client? Are you in overrun status? So from a project management perspective, as project managers, I would say that those are some key components that we expect at Millhouse, for example, from our PM, is being able to manage the deliverables on each of their projects. Every team member aware of that. I think there's some team members who are definitely more advanced and does not have to be closely managed. I think our younger employees need to be more closely managed from a project management perspective. But from an accounting perspective, a finance perspective, because we have to report almost on a bi-weekly basis, a lot of other things go into place. So knowing those deliverables, I would say every team member on my team within the finance group knows that, and deliverables are clear. But sometimes as a leader, you still have to check in, right? I try to make it my point to check in with my team members when they work remotely. Sometimes I really forget, right? Sometimes I forget, oh my God, I forgot to check on you today. But I think it's important to have clarity on that.
Okay, great. Again, I want to remind our audience, you are able to come off mute. Just click the little button over there to unmute yourself. You're also able to put some questions in the chat if you like to. I know we have a comment that says that I agree that with global teams working remote, I prefer to work from home. So I think we have just based off the poll, a majority of people like to work from home. Quick question, have your company adopted any work from home policies?
And are those written? Oh, that question is for me.
Yeah, that's for you.
I thought we were asking the participant. We have adopted a policy, I would say broadly, from an executive perspective. One of the things that we've done is really allow our division leaders who know their work and their team members more closely to make that decision. So we expect team member A to go to their leader and request that. So it's been an informal policy, but it's a policy that is working. I can tell you that team members are working from home. There isn't, when we see, for example, that work from home could be having a negative impact, then we would address it. But for most part at Millhouse, from our CEO down, he does encourage the leaders to make that decision and not something that is really micromanaged. One of the things that we've done there is we've also empowered teams to have the appropriate equipment, not just in the office. So we make sure that they have adequate internet access, 2 monitors, docking stations, all of those things that are needed, printers in some cases, especially when the pandemic hit, we purchased a significant number of printers so team members could work in that environment. So we've done a lot over at Millhouse to really meet our employees where they are. And at the same time, really demanding that they meet those requirements that the firm has for them.
Okay, great. Thank you for that feedback. I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat at this time, and I don't believe we have anyone that's waiting to ask any questions. So I want to just thank you all so much for being a part of this session. And I'd like to also take this opportunity to thank our talented and insightful presenter, Dr. Regis. As a token of our appreciation, we will also be presenting you with with a certificate of appreciation on behalf of the PMI Chicagoland chapter. And it's for recognition for your presentation on today, and to also say that we truly appreciate you being here with us and look forward to working with you and having you be a part of future Chicago professional development programs.
Thank you very much. It definitely was a pleasure. I would like to thank Melanie Jeffries for recommending me as a presenter to the Chicago chapter. Really excited by this opportunity. Now I have to go get my PMP.
Well, you're definitely in the right group to help with that. So we appreciate that, and all the best to you as you go to get your PMP.
Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. So up next, we will have networking and breakouts for 15 minutes outside of this group. So during that break, please check out our sponsors and chapter partner booths located in the breakout rooms to connect with other attendees and share your thoughts on the event. And also join us for our closing network, which begins at 3:45. Thank you all for attending, and thank you again, Dr. Regis, and wish you all a great afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.